This summer, we went to see the 4th of the 4th at Fort Carson, who had just returned from being on the Afghan-Pakistan border. And we had worked with them throughout the year. Now, they had picked a drop zone that was in between their forward operating base and the village because they couldn't afford to have the bundles come down and destroy the village. We watched sometimes with great despair as the bundles came down right on the drop zone, just to hit the DZ and roll off the side of the hill. That's not being effective. So working with them, you said, hey, let's change our techniques and our procedures. Let's change the type of shoots we're doing. Let's go to low altitude, okay, low cost. Let's move the DZ. And by doing that, you could be effective. You allowed them to survive. You allowed them to thrive in that environment by virtue of you and your solutions. Everybody's voice is important. In fact, I think a couple of the folks here from the 4th of the 4th want to say thank you.
I'm Captain Joshua Fender, Executive Officer, Baker Company 212 Infantry Regiment.
I'm Captain Brandon Bettis, former Executive Officer, Baker Company 212 Infantry Regiment.
Last year we were deployed to the eastern mountains of Afghanistan in the Korengal Valley. We were airlocked and relied on air mobility to supply us with our needs. It's not snow when you're deployed to the middle of nowhere. AMD is there to watch our backs.
Air mobility.
Good looking out.
That's what it takes to support a force in place. But what about when the force is moving? Game's got to go higher. Recently, we had a coalition team that was down the valley going after the Taliban. They got pinned down. They had enough food, water, and ammo for what they thought was a short engagement. It got extended. They were running out of food, water, and ammo. An emergency call went in. General Hostage called for an emergency airdrop. They needed about 16 bundles, 28,000 pounds of food and water and ammo immediately if they were going to survive. The deployed squadron commander said, whoa, they're in a deep valley. The mountains rise up 10,000 feet above. We're going to have to be really very accurate if we're going to do this. Oh, and by the way, the enemy's waiting for us in the hills. Air National Guard Unit, Peoria, Illinois, they get the assignment. PJ LaBarbera, what do? Plan. Take off very quickly. Fly in this valley with their C-130. They are in the weather, ladies and gentlemen. They know there's mountains rising up either side of them, 3,000 feet above them. They can only take half the load because if they lose an engine and have to do emergency escape, they have to have the ability to clear these mountaintops. First pass in with a sonobuoy to drop down and see what the winds are. Come back around with half the load, 8 bundles out the back of the airplane. Quickly go back to the base, reload. Back in again with that sonobuoy. Back in with the last 8 bundles. 16 bundles delivered. Think about the call. Hey, folks, we got all 16 bundles. We're good to go. And no one was hurt or injured because they delivered hope. PJ, why don't you stand up with your crew here? And though we love being able to do this with airlift, sometimes we need to do a little striking. Sometimes we need a little bit of global power. But global power is really fueled by tankers. It's the tanker that allows you to keep that umbrella overhead so when we need to strike, we can sustain cast overhead because they can get fuel. But it's not the airplane, it's you. Generating those aircraft, Manas, 2 a.m., minus 20 degrees, trying to fuel and generate aircraft. Or let's switch to the other end. Let's go down to Al-Udeid at 120 degrees, generating aircraft, recovering aircraft. The machine, our intel, all of you generate this capability. So when the crew takes off, boom, they're heading into Afghanistan. Is it important? I think so. To the 2nd of the 2nd Regiment. They were going after some Taliban. This time they had plenty of food, water, and ammo, but they met an enemy that was a lot more lethal than they thought. They called in some close air support. A-10s come zipping on in and start hammering the enemy. That's a good thing. But the A-10s were at the end of their sortie. They couldn't afford to go back home because they pulled off the 2nd of the 2nd. They would have suffered huge casualties. But they were at bingo. Rich Hennis and his tanker crew heard this. They quickly flew the tanker down over the A-10s and said, hey guys, look up, we're right above you. A-10s quickly pop up, get on the boom. The minute the A-10's on the boom, all of a sudden there's a breakaway. Not because he was out of position, because there was a call for more ordnance. He peels off the boom, drops it again on the enemy, and comes back up. Had the tanker crew not been there, the A-10s couldn't have sustained. We would have suffered huge casualties. Rich, stand up and get a huge round of applause with the crew for saving those people's lives. You're awesome. What do? We deploy a force. We sustain a force. Then we want to bring them home. Nothing makes us feel better than when we see folks leaving our airplanes, running across the ramp to family waiting for them. That defines success. That's magical. But sometimes we bring people home on a stretcher with an IV because it doesn't always go the way we want it to. And that's when AirVac is so critically important. Back in 2001, we only moved stabilized people, stabilized patients. You know what I'm talking about. Now, because of leaders who were up here before us, across the medical and our command, leaders in front of me, they made decisions that an AE team should be qualified in any airplane, that we can put trauma teams with our air medical evacuation teams, and we can now go from just flying stabilized to stabilizing patients. Now, that's a medical term, stabilizing. What does that mean? It means you're in intensive care. You just come out of the emergency room, and we put you on an airplane, and we take you to follow-on care. When I talk to my doctor buddies, they go, you do what? We wouldn't even move some of these people from intensive care to the ward, no less cross town, and you're putting them on an airplane? We sure are. You are. To anywhere that they need to go to save their lives. In fact, back in Vietnam, if we got you into the system, there was a 75% probability you would live. If we get you into the system now, a 98% probability you will live. We are part of the system. We are not the OR, we are not the first responders, but we have these precious warriors in our hands for a period of time, and you keep them alive. Does it make a difference? You bet. Does it make a difference to one British rifleman who was in a firefight, severely wounded, his lungs both full of blood, his liver completely traumatized? They got him down to Bastion, where they removed one of his lungs. They transfused him 14 times with 100 liters of blood, patching him up. He had about 12 hours to live. We have to get him to the closest lung trauma center, happened to be in Regensburg, Germany. A call comes into the TACC, Colonel John Martins, at 2 a.m. Said, hey, we need to do an urgent AirVac. Do the best you can, but we don't think the guy has much of a chance of living. Guess what? Yes, we can. And calls went out through the entire network, from the KAOC to Scott to the Theater Patient Movement Center. What are we going to do? Well, guess what? There was a device called a Nova lung, which was kind of an artificial lung that could help sustain his life. It is not FDA approved. We do not have them in the U.S. inventory. But some of our surgeons had trained in Ramstein with this folks in Regensburg. They actually had one there. There was one doctor who was actually qualified to use it. Oh, he wasn't in Ramstein. He was at Bagram. So what does the TACC do, this grand ballet? What do all our planners do? They make it happen. They dispatch a C-12 to go grab this surgeon and get him down to Bastion. They divert a McCord C-17 crew from Al Udeid up to Ramstein to pick up the Novolung and the trauma team. They get down to Bastion. While they're hooking him up, it got down there at 11 hours into this. 1 hour we thought he would expire. Got him hooked up to the machine, generated another C-17, boom, from Bastion up to Ramstein. From Ramstein, there was an awaiting helicopter that got him right to Regensburg to care that could actually stabilize him and save his life. And ladies and gentlemen, today, he is alive. He is back with his family in the UK. One British soldier. Hundreds of people who could have said, no, we can't, any way along the plan. But because you said, yes, we can, you saved his life. Colonel Schultz, your medical planners, Captain GJ, would you all stand up, please, our crew and our medical planners, and take a huge bow from this entire audience. They saved their lives. Thank you. Just as we inherit an Air Force that's in magnificent shape with the capabilities I just talked about, we have to ensure we do our part as it goes forward. We have to innovate. This symposium is a great example of seeing that. 50% of the people here, 40 to 50%, this is your first visit to the symposium. You get what we give you. Wow, the general, the colonel just gave us this. Okay, we'll use it. Well, what did you get to see here? You get to see industry, all of our contractors who deliver the future, who deliver solutions. That 8-bladed prop for our C-130, those new pieces of equipment for our aeromedical evacuation that reduce that intensive care package. So think about it, our industry, you provide the solutions, and here at this symposium, you get to see our airmen who are going to inherit those. I just wish we could get it quicker from what you can produce to how we get it to you. We'll work on that. But that's about innovation. Is innovation important in airlift, air refueling, and aeromedical evacuation? I think so. Airlift, what do we have to do? We talked about the need to increase precision. We talked about the need to reduce collateral damage, because if one of those CDS bundles going out to a forward operating base in Afghanistan goes off, burns in, and goes into a village, kills somebody in that village, those villagers will hate the U.S. for the rest of their lives. Will undermine the effect of that soldier or that Marine in that village. They may as well pack up and go home. So that's pretty important. We're working with NATIC, we're working with DARPA to improve our accuracies, our delivery techniques.